I've been all over this world. I seen men die. Be careful. I will. No demons, no ghosts, no magic.
Wow, Michael B. Jordan's proven that he's a freak, and he's being the allegations that he only messes with white girls. We're reviewing the movie Sinners here on this episode of the Idiocracy Report. Hey, what's going on? It's been a while, I must admit. Welcome to another episode of the Idiocracy Report. I'm Keenan Jerome. If you're in the Los Angeles area on May 4th, I will be co-headlining a show at the Nightcap in Burbank, California. Get your tickets in the description below. It's going to be at May 4th. Doors 7:30. Showtime 8 p.m. The movie Sinners, written and directed by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan playing the Smokestack Twins, Hailee Steinfeld, Jack O'Connell, Wunmi Mosaku, newcomer Miles Caton, and the impeccable and incredible Delroy Lindo. If you haven't seen the movie, this is going to be a spoilerific review. So, first of all, what are you doing with your life? Second of all, go watch the film in theaters and then come back to this discussion I'm about to have with myself. But Sinners is about the Smokestack Twins returning home to open a juke joint, reconnect with estranged loved ones, and leave their troubled past behind. But there's an evil lurking also waiting for them in 1932 Mississippi. Now, I want to just start off by saying this movie haunted me. At this point, I've seen the film 3 times. I saw it Thursday night, opening night, and I felt somewhat uneasy through the whole weekend before I saw it again on Monday. And I think some of it was because there were some unanswered questions I had. I felt that I might have missed some important plot points or some details. The imagery was somewhat haunting, in the interactions between, the way they lit the scenes was beautiful. The music really touched my soul, which lends itself to the subject of the movie of how the blues really transcends generations. And also the vampire stuff was scary to a certain extent. I mean, it's not a scary movie, but given the context of the film, the time period, it was just all these different emotions I was feeling. And while I was thinking about the film, I was just like, I don't know what it is. It's just something about this movie that has affected me. And I don't think I've ever seen a movie before that really affected me in such a way that this film affected me emotionally. I mean, maybe the last movie that I saw that really got to me like that was probably The Land Before Time, and that was in the 80s. And that's because Littlefoot's mom got killed on screen. The Lion King ain't got nothing on The Land Before Time. But when I went to see it, so Sunday night, I started developing this revelation, right? And then when I saw it again on Monday, it kind of reaffirmed what I started thinking. The reason that the movie haunted me is because this is a story about my family. I'll walk you through it. Miles Caton is basically the main character of the movie. And this is why I say this, because he's the first character that we're introduced to. We're basically seeing the story unfold through his eyes, usually through storytelling. The first character that we meet is basically the main character of the story, right? Like, for example, when you saw the first Star Wars, right? The first character that we saw main character that we saw was Darth Vader, right? And then once we got the prequels and all that stuff, and we got through the whole trilogy, we got through the prequels, we started to learn that Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader was the main character of Star Wars, right? So when movies are when they introduce the first character, it's usually not a mistake. Thematically, it's not a mistake. So, Mike Canton's character, whose name is Preacher Boy, he goes by Sammy Moore, but his name is Preacher Boy. He's the first character that we meet, and his father's a pastor, right? And I relate to this because, for those of you that don't know, I grew up Jehovah's Witness, right? I grew up Jehovah's Witness, and not only did I grow up Jehovah's Witness, my father in particular was somewhat strict. Now, my father's from Florida. His parents, sharecroppers, all that stuff. He went to school, very educated, very disciplined, right? Once he found something that he liked and desired, he basically stuck with it, but he did what he could to provide for his family, and he did a pretty good job doing that as well. He took care of my mother and us my entire life, so no qualms about that. My father was an elder in the congregation, which is basically kind of like a pastor, right? And he took that job very seriously, and he was very strict on us because the family's reputation, his privileges in the congregation, the family's reputation kind of like dictated that. So, we kind of lived under this thing where it's like everything that we did, we didn't want to bring reproach on the family. Everything that we did, we wanted to make sure that my father looked good and all that stuff, right? So eventually what ended up happening was there's this internal pressure for the sons, particularly in religious households, to kind of take the mantle of a spiritual leader. And that's basically what happened with me. I had expressed early on in my life, probably when I was 6 or 7, that I wanted to go to film school. I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to make movies and all that stuff. And for a while, my parents did support that ambition. For a while. I made cartoons on Super 8mm film. I shot little short films on Super 8mm film. I also played the piano, played music, wrote my own songs for my movies. I eventually did a feature-length film coming out of high school, going into college, that I was able to show at a local theater. And it got a lot of press. We lived in a small town up north. But I got a lot of press. We got a chance to show it in the theater. People came and showed out. People from the church came, the Kingdom Hall rather, came and attended the film premiere. And it didn't go over too well. I mean, the movie itself wasn't that good, but the reaction of the members of the congregation was somewhat negative. And that basically put a kaput to my filmmaking career as far as my father was concerned. So, Preacher Boy, Sammy Moore in the movie, he wants to play music. He wants to play the blues, right? And that's his passion. And that's his calling. He feels that that's what he needs to do. He's a sharecropper who works all week. And on the weekends, he says, I want to go someplace. I want to do what I want to do. And I want to play music, which is nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And he walks into the church. And he has this guitar that his uncles, Michael B. Jordan, Smoke and Stack, Elijah and Elias, give him. And basically his father says, look, I want you to become a preacher. I want you to help me give my sermon. I've brought you up well. This gift that you have of playing music is fine, but it's a gift of God. It's a gift from God. So instead of going out and playing with all these heathens, all these sinners, which is the name of the movie, why don't you stay here with me and maybe play church music or something, or help me give my sermon or whatever, right? And Sammy is very reluctant, and he pushes back. He says, yo, I want to play the blues, right? And I related to that so much because this pressure that you have where, and this happens a lot too, when you want to work in entertainment and you're in a preacher household, right? Well, let's put it this way. Entertainment has a really bad reputation to begin with. Most of the people that's in this industry are demons. Like, let's not have any qualms or any confusion about that. There's a lot of people in this business that are demons, and they try to take advantage of people. They abuse people. People lose their minds. People lose their families. They lose their homes. They lose their money. That's why there's so many crazy, out of touch people that are in Hollywood or in entertainment in general. And what happens is when you come and you try to participate in the entertainment business, if you're not down with a lot of that stuff, it's hard for you to get work. So the trepidations that parents have for their children, especially black children, to enter the entertainment business, it's not unfounded. You know, their concerns are valid. But there's just something about being an artist. There's just something about being an artist where you try to figure it out. You try to make your way. And that's basically what Preacher Boy's going through. I relate to that so much. He had to leave. You know, he just said, look, let me just go out for the night. I'm going to play my music and then I'll be back in the morning. Simple as that, right? So, Smoke and Stack, played by Michael B. Jordan, played perfectly by Michael B. Jordan. They're twins, right? One actor playing two twins. Mostly different personalities, right? Now, let me see if I remember this correctly. Elijah is Smoke, I believe. Elijah is Smoke. And he's the more conservative brother of the two. And he's the one that kind of keeps his eyes open. He's the protector of his twin, Elias Stack. Both biblical names, by the way. He's the protective brother of Stack. And they're saying, I guess, that Stack is the youngest of the two twins. And we learn that their father used to beat Stack more than Smoke. And eventually Smoke killed their father in defense of Stack, right? So that's the type of relationship that they have. These are the type of men that they are. And Stack went on to be a pimp in, where were they? Little Rock, Arkansas. He was a pimp in Little Rock, Arkansas. You know, but both brothers fought in World War I. So both brothers fought in World War I. Smoke is the protected brother of Stack, the more serious, the more conservative one. They both moved up to Chicago. They were working with Al Capone, and eventually find out that they played both sides. They played the Irish mob and they played the Italian mob, stole the money, then came back down to Mississippi to open the juke joint. And the subtle ways that we learn this is that they're selling corn whiskey, corn liquor, which is something that the sharecroppers at the time were drinking because that's what they could afford, and Italian wine and Irish beer. So that's kind of like the hint of the type of stuff that they were getting into in Chicago. Now, they pick up Preacher Boy to play music at the juke joint. So the whole first hour is basically them getting ready to open the juke joint that night, and their main clientele is going to be the sharecroppers, the people that are busting their backs in the fields picking cotton every day. And it's hard to like talk about this without like getting emotional, but as I'm watching this movie, you know, of course I relate to Sammy, because of the type of relationship that he had with his father. But I think about, damn, I get emotional when I talk about family. This is a movie about my grandparents. This is a movie about my grandparents. And, you know, and I miss them. But, you know, my grandfather was born in 1912. My grandmother was born in 1910. So, oh, sorry. Whew, okay. Okay, we're going to get through this. My grandfather was born in 1912. Sorry, my grandmother was born in 1912. So that means that Sammy's character, Preacher Boy's character, would be about the same age as my grandparents, more or less, if they existed, if they were in the universe of this film. Because remember, it's 1932 Mississippi. And what ends up happening is they get Delroy Lindo, who's a jazz man, alcoholic jazz man. Bring him down. His name is Delta Slim. They bring him down to the juke joint to play. Smoke goes and reconnects to his estranged wife, played by Wunmi Mosaku, and her name is Annie. And we learned that they lost, a child, lost a baby, and she's a practitioner of hoodoo. And hoodoo is a very specific Southern tradition. Like, it's not to be confused with voodoo, which is more like Caribbean based, but hoodoo has its roots in Africa, but it was very prominent in the Delta, the Mississippi Delta, New Orleans, Mobile, where I'm from, that region that's along the Gulf of Mexico. And basically, she said she put a root on Smoke to kind of like protect him and all the things that he's been through. So they reconnect. She comes, she cooks for them. Backtrack. Smoke goes into town and he gets the chows to help them. I think with the electricity, with food, and with making a sign for the juke joint. Now the chows are a Chinese couple. Chinese family, rather. It's mom, dad, and a daughter. And they run two grocery stores in town. And what I noticed, the third time that I saw the movie, is that it's one street, and the chows have two grocery stores on each side of the street. And the first time I saw it, I was like, why do they have two grocery stores? Like, this isn't, like, why would they have two grocery stores across the street from each other? And the third time I saw it, they had a grocery store on the black side of the street, and then they had a grocery store on the white side of the street. Now, this is one street. This is one street in the middle of town, and literally the street is split in half, and it's almost like it's two different worlds, right? So, first, Smoke goes to the black side of the street, obviously, to talk to the husband. The daughter's in the grocery store, and he basically is like, yo, I need you guys to give me this, I need you guys to give me that. And in one shot, we follow the daughter as she walks. It's a Steadicam shot. As she walks from the black side of the street to the white side of the street. And as we're entering the white side of the street, we hear the white people talking about the black people. Like, they're shopping or whatever, and you hear people like, yeah, I don't really have any problem with colored folks, just as long as they stay, on their side of town or whatever. It was like the craziest details. How this family was basically running two businesses. They were playing both sides, right? So she comes back. And it was funny because there's even a part in the movie where, like, Smoke, he shoots two black dudes. He doesn't kill them. He shoots them, like, in the butt because they're, like, robbing his truck. And it's almost like no one even like really notices. Like the black side of the street, they kind of notice, but like the white side is almost like, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like they're like, it doesn't face them because that's not their part of the street. It's weird. It's like crazy, right? So we have the Chinese. Um, then we have Stack going out to the train station. He gets Delroy Lindo's character, Delta Slim, to come and play. And he offers him a beer, which apparently they didn't have access to beer in the South. It was just corn liquor because probably beer was expensive, for that time. And that's when we meet Hailee Steinfeld's character. And what's that movie? So her character's white passing, right? But what's that movie where it's like the white passing? It's like the white passing. What? Imitation of Life. That's what I was gonna call it. Life is Beautiful, but that's a different movie. Imitation of Life. Imitation of Life is the movie, and it's kind of like that. So the story behind Hailee Steinfeld's character is that her mother's father is half black, so she's a little bit black, but basically they raised her like a white girl, right? And she and Stack hooked up. Well, they were like in love, but Stack was basically like, look, you're basically white, so this relationship is not going to work out. And she's like, oh, well, I loved you and all this stuff. So we kind of like learn about their relationship. We learn about their relationship at the train station. So everyone heads to the juke joint, having a good time for one night. Everybody, all these black folks, they're leaving all their inhibitions and all their problems behind for one night, and that's the point of the juke joint. I almost forgot about the most important scene in the entire movie, the music scene. This happens about halfway through the entire picture, and it's a one-shot scene shot on IMAX 65. So what ends up happening is that the scene expands upward, right? If you're watching it in IMAX. But this scene where Preacher Boy is playing I Lied to You, right? And we go through the transition of how the blues transcends space and time, right? We basically time travel in the same scene, right? So he starts playing, and African tribal musicians appear, and they're playing alongside him. And then we go into the future where there's an electric guitar, a black electric guitarist, and then we move into hip hop. And it's just this amazing illusion of how we're connected musically, right? And, some people might take it in the way, like when they first say, they're like, yo, this is kind of corny. Like, there's girls twerking in the 1930s or whatever. Like, what's happening? But the way, because the thing about the scene is, it was very easy for me to delve into corny or campy. But the way that the scene was shot for me was perfect. The lighting was perfect. The music was perfect. The emotion of the scene, the way the camera moved, the way that the styles didn't seem to clash. Like they melded together like a good soup. And for me, that's what made the scene work. And that's the scene that most people are talking about. Because it's such a controversial scene in the way that it was done, in the way that it was executed. But also, I think people are feeling emotions that they haven't felt in a long time. As I said before, this is a movie about my grandparents. My grandparents used to go to juke joints in the 30s. When you think about the idea the Klan is in this movie, the story that Delroy Lindo's character, Delta Slim, talks about his brother. You know, they made money playing music, and he got caught at the train station with a bunch of money, and the Klan lied about him killing a white man to steal his money, and they killed him. So, like, when I say this is like a movie about my family, it means a lot, because I went down to Mobile recently, and my aunt told me stories of my grandfather and my grandmother. And she told me and I remember my grandfather and my grandmother in the sense that they were always dressed nice. You know, my grandfather always had on a nice suit. They had like a gold tooth or two. Rings on the finger. My grandfather ironed his dollar bills. You understand what I'm saying? So when I'm watching this movie of these nice, Michael B. Jordan playing this black man with money who had nice threads on, nice suits, and a nice hat. You know, it reminds me of that's what my grandfather was. Right? So you think about what my grandfather had to do. He had a plethora of jobs. He was a pipe fitter. He worked for white people who trusted him, and he was able to make his money that way. He raised my mother and her sisters and my uncle. You know, took care of my grandmother. Always treated her with respect. Did what he had to do. You know, and in the South, a lot of people, you know, cash is king. You know, we use our credit cards and stuff, but the fact that you can bring out cash in a silver clip, it meant something. You feel me? It meant something, and that's what happened in this movie. You know, I felt like I was watching, you know, what it was like, home movies. And not only they had to take care of my family, it's like my grandparents also had to survive the Klan. They had to survive. Because it was like the Wild West in the South up until the 60s. It's still like that in the South to a certain extent, but it was legal back then. People just killing people. Anyway, so Jack O'Connell, he plays Remick, who's a vampire, and he shows up. He's getting chased by Indians, Catshaw, and he runs into another Irish couple who's also a part of the Klan. He turns them by biting them. They go down to the juke joint, trying to come in and say, "Hey, man, we heard there was a party. We heard that there was drinks. They heard there was food. We want to come in. We want to spend some time with y'all. We want a fellowship for one night. We can all be family." And of course, the Smokestack Twins and everybody else are like, "Nope, you all can go back into town and hang out with the other white folks. You don't have to come over here because we don't want no problem. This is for us. For us, by us." They wait around, they hang out. This is when like the major symbolism like comes into the film. Because they're very poignant about Remick basically looks at Sammy and he goes, "I heard your voice and I heard your music and I want that. Give me that. That's what I want. You just come outside and we'll leave the rest of you alone," right? And it becomes very clear. Sammy's like, "My dad told me the devil's going to come and get me. The devil has come to get me. And I'm putting all of you at risk." And then they go, "No, we're going to protect you. You're the youngest." And that means a lot to me too, because again, I'm the youngest of all my siblings on my mom's side, the ones I'm talking about from Mississippi and Alabama. I'm the youngest, so my cousins are like protective of me. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, it's our job to protect you. Right? This is where the symbolism of everything comes in. And this is why you can't invite everyone to the cookout. Because what ended up happening was Hailee Steinfeld's character, what was her name? I'm blanking. Hailee Steinfeld's character. What's her name? Hailee Steinfeld's character, Mary, basically said, hey, I'm going to go out and see what they want because I'm white passing. You know, I can talk to white folks. They go out. She goes out. She gets bit. She comes back in and she bites Stack. He becomes a vampire. Everyone has to leave. Everyone goes out. Mrs. Chow, the Chinese lady, sends her husband out to get the car. He gets bit. And everyone outside becomes a vampire. And it's only the people left on the inside who is safe. And of course, Annie is like, yo, she feels the malevolent spirits. And she's like, yo, we got to stay inside. We got to wait. These guys are Hanks. They're hates. They're all this stuff. We gotta protect ourselves. And then this is where the other symbolism comes in. Mrs. Chow, who on the outset, when Stack gets bit, they think he's dead. And basically she's like, we need to leave. She tells her husband, we need to leave. We just came just to get money and just to help them with the juke joint. And now that was fun, now it's getting serious. We need to go. We need to go home. We need to take care of our family. Which is like very interesting, right? Because what ended up happening was she's the one that brought in the vampires in to the juke joint. Because they're like, we need to keep them out. She's basically like, yo, bring them in. I'm going to kill all of them. She only ended up killing like one of them, and I'm not even sure which one it was. So they battle to the death. You know, some people get converted, some people don't. Annie gets bit, and she made Smoke promise to stab her in the heart with a wooden stake because she did not want to be trapped in her body as a vampire, right? So he does, and he fights his brother, and basically they fight until the sun comes up, and the main vampire Remick, his main target is Sammy. He almost has Sammy in his grasp, but he's saved by Smoke. Sun comes up, burns up all the vampires. But it doesn't end there. The guy that sold the juke joint to the Smokestack twins is the Grand Dragon of the clan. I don't know why the clan keeps naming themselves after Dungeons and Dragons characters, but he's the Grand Dragon of the clan and shows up with his clan buddies to basically to kill all the remaining black people so they can take the property back. And Smoke, using his World War I experience, kills them all. He ends up getting killed in the process, and he rejoins with Annie and their baby in the afterlife. And that's basically what happens in the movie Sinners. Oh, and by the way, Sammy does not become a preacher. He becomes a blues man. And we meet up with him in 1992 Chicago, where he's an old man that's been playing the blues for, at this point, probably 70 years. And he's visited by Stack and Mary, who have been living this long because they're vampires and they were allowed to live. And he plays one last song for them. And he asked them, he says, hey, once a week I wake up paralyzed thinking about that night. Is it the same? But up until that point, it was the best day of my life. Is it that way for you? And Michael B. Jordan's character says, he says, yeah. He says, it was the last time I saw my brother. And it was the last time. Ugh, okay. Uh, the reason I liked Sinners, uh, it's been a while since we've had a movie that really talks about the importance and culture of Black Americans in the South. We don't get a chance to see a lot of these movies where it shows Black Americans happy. You know, I mean, Life with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence was a funny movie. You know, and I think maybe that was probably the last time that we saw something like this. Maybe this movie, maybe like Harlem Nights. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, the ending to me was kind of tacked on. The ending, you know, I think the movie could have been longer to kind of give us some more satisfying ending so that it didn't feel like it was rushed at the end. You know, with the Klan showing up and all that stuff. But overall, I definitely recommend seeing it. I recommend seeing it in theaters. I recommend seeing it in IMAX 70mm if you can. If you see it in regular digital IMAX, that's fine too. But I want to give a shout out to Ryan Coogler because, bro, Ryan, you get it. Ryan Coogler gets it. And as much as I enjoyed Black Panther and Creed and all that stuff, it was nice to get a movie that I really felt was for me. So, yeah. If you've seen the movie Sinners, what do you think? Leave your comment below. If you've gotten this far, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Yeah, this is a movie about my grandparents. What parts did you like in the movie? I want to hear your thoughts. And again, if you're in the Los Angeles area, you can come and check me out at the Nightcap. I'm co-headlining on May 4th. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Idiocracy Report. I've been Keenan Jerome. Take care. Oh, one of the reasons that I feel that everyone is loving the movie Sinners, even though it has a mostly black cast, is because Ryan Coogler and a lot of other writers like him are based black writers and directors, in the sense of he's not necessarily starting off with trying to prove a point first or teach a lesson first. He starts out by trying to tell a great story that's based in realism, that's based in authenticity, and that's what people are attracted to. To be honest with you, most people don't really care about the color of the characters. It's the authenticity of the story and whether there's emotional connection. So, take notes if you're trying to tell a story and there's some history involved. Another thing I want to mention, the post-credit scene. Not the post-credit scene, but the mid-credit scene where they find Sammy Moore. He's old and he's playing blues in Chicago. He's played by Buddy Guy, and it's in 1992. Michael B. Jordan's character, Stack, and Mary, they visit him. And basically he says, hey man, you're about to die soon. I could make you live forever and continue to tour. At this point, he's old already. Wouldn't it be weird to have an old person touring forever? I think someone would get suspicious. As I was watching the movie the third time, I said, is this how Morgan Freeman was born? Because that dude's been old since Driving Miss Daisy.